Thank you for turning to 10, your news leader. 10 News Conference with Gene Valicenti continues right now.
Welcome back. My guest in studio today is Rhode Island Energy President Greg Cornett, the gas and electric man. Greg, welcome. You're up from Kentucky.
I am.
And you're relatively new to our area, right?
Yeah, took the job back in March, although I've worked in the industry for over 25 years. I was with our sister utility down in Kentucky for a number of years before moving up here.
Okay, so you're settling in?
Love it.
Now let's give you an earful, right, which I'm sure you're used to.
I'm used to it.
I got my gas bill, and I took a look at it, and it went up about 3 times. This current gas bill is about 3 times what I paid last month.
Yep.
No, I like to be warm.
Sure.
And I know the weather's been colder.
Yeah.
But is this out of whack? Because my neighbors also called and said, have you seen your gas bill?
Yeah. Well, it's probably not out of whack, Gene. I mean, there are two factors there. One is usage, and you said you like to stay warm, so it's been colder, and that obviously impacts it. The other real driver for that, though, is we're in the winter season, and here in New England, we're a very constrained part of the country in terms of supply that comes in, and that especially the gas prices are dominated by factors outside of our control, outside of anybody's control. So the prices, supply prices just go up in the winter. It's an unfortunate reality. We've been in this cycle really for a number of years now. We do everything we can to try to fight against it, but at the end of the day, that supply component gets passed on to our customers dollar for dollar. There's no profit that we make on that. Whatever we can buy it for is what you get charged at home.
The actual product, the gas itself, comes out of the ground far, far away.
Right.
You don't make any money selling that to me. You make money delivering it to me.
Correct. That's correct.
Okay. So just looking at my bill, let's just say simply, I bought $3 worth of gas, $3.79 worth of gas, but it cost me $6.11 to get it here. Does that make sense? I'm not in your industry, but say, wow, it cost twice as much to deliver it than it did to act for the actual commodity that you make no money on.
Right. Well, if you look at the bill itself, the delivery charge, which we break out on the bill between supply and delivery, that delivery really contains 2 components. One is the actual cost for the infrastructure to deliver that gas or the electricity to your home. The other are certain taxes and other things that we're required to put on that bill that get wrapped into that delivery charge. So of that, if you want to use the $6 factor, really only about 45 to 50% of that is actual delivery. The other part is what we call public policy costs, so taxes and other components that get put into the bill that we're required to pass along.
I mean, I'm just using $3 worth of gas. It cost me $6 to get it. It was much more than that. I'm just trying to keep the conversation simpler. But that was the ratio.
Yeah.
For every $3 worth of gas I bought, which you say that, hey, we don't make any money on that.
That's right.
I make money when I deliver it to you. It was almost twice that to get it to me, and you're saying that's a fact of life living here in the Northeast?
It is a component of the constraints that we have in our system here. Yeah, it's in our delivery charges. If you look at what they are in other states, it's entirely consistent. In fact, ours in Rhode Island tends to be a little less than what you would see in Massachusetts or Connecticut in most periods of the year.
And to get for the amount you charge, that's all approved by regulators.
That's right.
State regulators. You have to go and make your case and say, this is what I need to stay afloat.
Absolutely. We are, it's open book for us. Everything is completely transparent. We have to go in front of regulators. We go in front of them yearly for our infrastructure plan so that they are looking at everything with a fine-tooth comb, and everything is approved, and then not only is it approved in advance, but they look at it after the fact, and if they need to make adjustments, if they think that we've miscalculated something or something needs to be changed, that gets changed.
So, and you looked at my bill, and it is what it is.
It is what it is.
I'm going to tell my wife that. Oh, the boss looked at it.
Right.
It is what it is. We got to write the check. It's due. Oh, it's due by the 22nd.
Yeah, so you got a little bit of time.
You'll get it in time.
Okay,
all right.
I appreciate it.
You know, I do a radio show, and every week we do Ask the DOT, and every week somebody calls in complaining about a street that you dug up.
Yep.
And if it's not the gas and electric, it's the water company. Kent County Water gets an earful, and they say, you don't put it back together. nice enough
Yeah.
that you slop it over, it's a mess, and sometimes the street has just been paved and it's a mess. You're aware of these calls. You say you listen to my radio show.
Sure.
So go ahead. I understand the DOT director is also giving you an earful over this.
Yeah, we work very closely with DOT and with local, local officials, because some of these are secondary streets. They're not necessarily DOT streets. We understand it's an inconvenience when we have to open up a street. We try to avoid doing that as much as we can, but there are leaks sometimes that we have to get to. We have new customer hookups that we're required to do. We have upgrades that we're required to do. So there are sort of two factors there, Gene. We initially will do a rough pave, oftentimes right after the work is done, and then we'll come back in and do a more finished pave. We are in most instances required to do what's called curb to curb paving, so that we pave that entire section of the road. We just don't do that one little strip down the middle. So, we try to work very, very closely with the officials to make sure that we're doing as good a job as possible. We don't do the paving ourselves. We use contractors that are paving contractors. That's not our business. Obviously, we're not experts in paving, but we use those contractors to come in and do the paving work.
I understand that your pipes, you have to get to them. If you want to keep the gas flowing, you have to get to the gas. I understand that, but just a volume of complaints. And the DOT director, he seems to say you guys aren't doing a good enough job.
Yeah.
Is that a fair assessment? You've heard him.
I've heard him. I wouldn't agree. I mean, I'm going to say,
sure, I understand.
We're not perfect. Nobody's perfect, and I'm not going to say that in every instance, every paving job that's been done under our watch has been perfect. But we try to get the roads back into as best a condition as we can. The reality is, anytime you're disturbing pavement, you're putting it back. There's going to be a break or a bump, and weather obviously sometimes impacts that as well. But we try to get it back in as good a condition as we possibly can, understanding that it is frustrating to folks when we're out in the middle of the road. I will also say that a lot of times we get blamed for work that really wasn't our work. There are others that are out there doing, trenching. There are telecommunications providers, there are water companies, other things. So we all sort of get lumped in together sometimes.
Fair enough. You're right.
Yeah.
Telecommunications and the Kent County Water and the
we
water
all have
authorities. I get it. All right. Let's look up now to the lines.
Yeah.
Because it's an old-fashioned system.
Yeah.
Other parts of the country, they're buried.
Yeah.
And when the hurricane comes in, they're buried. Here, we get a gust of wind sometimes. We go out. It's an old system. Can you do better with that? Or is that up to us that the taxpayer should have funded burial a long time ago?
Well, I mean, certainly undergrounding is extremely expensive, and it while it has certainly a number of benefits, it also has some downsides, especially in a coastal area like Rhode Island.
Okay.
And if you do have an underground system, if there is a fault in that system, it can take longer to restore power. So there are pros and cons to it, cost being one of the biggest factors. But back to your actual question, when we bought the system from National Grid a little over 2 years ago, Rhode Island Energy is a relatively new company here in the state. So when the PPL family of companies bought the Rhode Island system, we've taken a look at this. It is an old system, and we've worked extremely hard over the last 2 years, and we've got a plan moving forward to continue to modernize the grid and the infrastructure here in Rhode Island. And I'm proud to say that we've enhanced reliability substantially in the 2.5 years that we've been here. Just last year, we had one of the best years of reliability that had ever been seen in Rhode Island for this company's history. So we are incredibly focused on hardening the system. Things like replacing some of those old wooden poles with much more substantial steel poles, and really heavy reliance on technology moving forward to both harden and strengthen the system and to make it ready for the heavy use of electrification that we know is coming.
Well, if we go to electric cars at some point, that's going to revolutionize what you do. It's a game changer.
Absolutely.
All right, but with regard to just kind of coming into this winter, we get a storm. It piles up on the branches knock the power lines down. In my development, we're underground.
Yeah.
But I connect up to a pole at the end of my development. It's a lousy system. What's the solution? Cut the trees better? How about a law to keep people from putting a tree near your power line?
Yeah.
Would you support that?
We've worked very closely with state and local officials over the last year to look at vegetation management. I mean, you're raising a really important point. The number one cause of outages is vegetation, both in terms of occurrence and duration. So we understand that folks love their trees. We certainly appreciate vegetation as well, but it does need to be away from our system. So we've been working very closely over the last year and a half to develop a new program for vegetation management. There was a law that we helped put forward and that got passed, and we appreciate all of the cooperation from the legislative leaders and the governor last year that allows us to have a new stakeholder process in place that's now underway to have a new standard for vegetation management that applies across the Ocean State, so that we're not dealing with separate standards in each little municipality or each area of the state. And we understand folks don't like it when we're out there cutting the trees, but it's a necessary part because it's absolutely critical to keeping the system running.
Listen, it's easy to beat up on the utility.
Yep.
You dig up the streets, you don't put it back. I understand, but the pipes are under there.
Yeah.
We're going to cut your trees, but then people come and yell at you if you cut the trees. So, this goes on everywhere.
It does. It absolutely does.
Yeah.
And it's, you mentioned an old system. So, but the infrastructure is largely the same across the country, and we are incredibly focused on building what we're calling the utility of the future.
Okay.
And we're doing that across the PPL footprint and really focusing on it here in Rhode Island to make sure that we've got a grid that is as safe and reliable as it can be, and that is ready for this new electrification that's coming our way.
Stay with us. We'll take a quick break. Speaking of new electrification, I drive a couple electric cars.
Yeah.
And I guess I'd like more chargers, but this is like a revolutionary thing. We'll get into that with our guest, Greg Cornett from Rhode Island Energy, Gas and Electric. Welcome back. The boss from Rhode Island Energy is with us, Greg Cornett. Who would have thought the gas and electric guy would be so interesting? But
I don't know about that.
It touches on so many things. You're swapping out the meters one by one. That's a lengthy project. You need to do this?
It is, yes. So we're two things are going on there. One, we're approaching the useful life of most of the meters that we have here in the state, and we're also rolling out advanced meter functionality, which will provide a lot of information for both the customer and for the utility. For example, it will allow us to know in real time if you've got an outage at your house. Right now, the only way we know is when you call or somebody else calls and says my power's out, or we see something on the system. But this will allow us to know in real time, Gene Valicenti's got an outage at his house, and we can run diagnostics and either get it back on like that, or we can send somebody out to get it done.
Well, that's a game changer.
It is.
I'm surprised it took this long to get to something like that.
The reality is Rhode Island is behind the 8 ball on that. Most states in the country already have this program, and so when we came on board, we realized that was something that needed to happen here, and we, back to your point earlier, we went in front of the Public Utilities Commission, put forward a plan, and they approved it to allow us to start that work. So we're in the early stages of doing that. The first meters will be set in the May timeframe of this year, and that'll roll through next year.
Well, it's the older part of the country.
It is.
It's not Arizona.
That's right.
It's not the newer part of the country. Do things differently. Where else are we behind the 8 ball? You and I talked about the trees, the whole the whole grid.
Yeah.
You're in a rebuilding process. We
are. I mean, there was a lack of investment in some of the grid here in the state and in New England, frankly, and we're trying to right that ship in the Ocean State at least. It's a balance between cost. We can't do so much all at once because it's too expensive for our customers to be able to do that. One of the downsides of being in a state like Rhode Island is we've only got 770-ish thousand customers, so we can't. We're incredibly conscious of cost, but also conscious of reliability. So we're trying to take steps where we can to rely on technology to keep the cost down, but to increase reliability and sustainability as we move forward.
You just got less than a minute. I've had 3 electric cars now, and I like them. Now, there's a whole section of people who don't like them.
Sure.
But that's going to transform everything. Eventually, we're going that way, and you're going to have to build out another infrastructure. Does that involve you? With just about 30 seconds, go ahead.
It involves us in terms of the supply and the wires to get to those chargers and to be able to have the resource adequacy to supply that load. As we look at customers moving off of delivered fuels and maybe even natural gas in the future, the more they're relying upon electricity, the more we have to make sure that that grid is ready to supply that power.
All right. Well, listen, that's the future. Right now, we want to get the asphalt dropped and the trees cut and the gas keep going at a reasonable price.
Yeah.
Hey, thanks for coming in. Greg Cornett from Rhode Island Energy. Appreciate it. Welcome to Rhode Island.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it.